My fiancé looked me dead in the eye and said, "I'm not signing a prenup." I shrugged slightly and replied, "You should trust me." "I do trust you," she said. That was all I needed to hear. The very next move I made, I quietly transferred every single asset I owned into my mother's name. When the official letter from my lawyer was placed in front of her and I explained what I'd done, she just sat there, completely stunned, unable to form a single word. All right, guys, buckle up, because this story is a complete disaster. I'm 31, and what I'm about to tell you might seriously make you rethink relationships altogether. Maybe even have you dreaming about disappearing into some remote cabin in the middle of nowhere. But it's a story worth telling, because if it saves even one of you from going through what I did, it's worth it. Let me give you some context first. I'm a mechanical engineer, but my real financial break came from getting into cryptocurrency way earlier than most people. Back in 2013, I started mining Bitcoin in my college dorm room, stacking it quietly while everyone else thought I was wasting my time. When Bitcoin eventually skyrocketed, I cashed out close to $980,000 by the time I was 26. It wasn't retire tomorrow and disappear money, but it was enough to set myself up comfortably. I bought a solid house in the suburbs outright, maxed out my 401k, and still had around $600,000 sitting safely in index funds. The important part? I didn't change my lifestyle. I kept driving my 2018 Toyota Camry. I stayed at the same engineering job earning about $78,000 a year. I didn't flaunt anything, didn't upgrade my life in obvious ways. To anyone looking from the outside, I was just another average guy. The only real difference was that I owned my home free and clear and never had to stress about money. That's when Madison entered the picture. I was 28, she was 26, and we met at a brewery during trivia night. She was there with a group of friends, and I'd shown up with my coworker Jake. She was undeniably attractive, blonde, around 5 feet 6 inches, with a laugh that pulled people in. But what really stood out wasn't her appearance. It was how sharp she was. During trivia, she was nailing answers left and right, from old 90s movies to random European capitals. We started talking between rounds, and she seemed genuinely down to earth. She told me she worked as a marketing coordinator at a tech startup, had her own place, and loved hiking and yoga. When she asked what I did and I mentioned engineering, she didn't zone out like most people do. She actually seemed interested. We exchanged numbers and things moved naturally from there. For the first few months, everything felt perfect. She insisted on splitting bills when we went out, never pushed for expensive dates, and seemed fully independent. We'd go hiking, cook meals together, binge Netflix, just normal relationship stuff. About 6 months in, she mentioned she was having trouble keeping up with her student loan payments. I offered to help, but she turned me down immediately, said she needed to take care of her own responsibilities. At the time, I respected that. It made her seem strong, self-sufficient. Looking back now, that was complete bullshit. Around the 8th month, subtle things started changing. Little comments here and there. "Your house is really nice for an engineer's salary. You must be really good with money. I bet you could retire early." At first, I didn't think much of it. It sounded like harmless curiosity. But then the questions became more direct. "How much is your mortgage?" "0, but I didn't tell her that." "What kind of savings do you have?" "What do engineers usually make after a decade in the field?" I kept everything vague. Told her I was doing okay. Comfortable but nothing special. The bigger warning sign came when she started talking about our future, and not in a romantic way. It was always framed around money and planning. "When we get married, we should upgrade to a bigger house. I can't wait until we can afford to travel more. Once we combine our incomes, things will be so much easier." I ignored all of it. Truth is, I wasn't thinking with the right head. Madison was incredible in bed. Completely ruined my standards. Confident, enthusiastic, always making me feel like I was the best she'd ever had. At the time, I thought it was passion. Now, I see it for what it really was, part of the game. After 2 years together, I proposed. Nothing over the top, just a solid $8,000 ring that I thought was reasonable. Her reaction should have been my wake-up call. She said yes. She cried. The whole emotional moment played out exactly how you'd expect. But almost immediately after that, she shifted the conversation. She started talking about upgrading the ring later. Bigger stone, better quality. Once we're more established. That was the moment I should have realized what I was actually dealing with. But I didn't, and that mistake almost cost me everything. The second that ring slipped onto her finger, Madison changed almost overnight. The woman I thought I knew seemed to disappear, replaced by someone far more controlling. Suddenly, everything became ours, our money, our future. And she had very clear opinions on how both should be handled. Planning the wedding quickly turned into a disaster. We had originally agreed on a simple ceremony and reception with a budget of $25,000. That plan didn't last long. "Babe, I found the perfect venue," she'd say excitedly, only to show me places charging $15,000 just to rent the space. "The photographer I want is only $4,000, she'd add, like that was completely normal. "It's our special day, and we need an open bar. What are people going to think if we only serve beer and wine?" Every discussion followed the same pattern. I'd try to keep things within the budget, and she'd respond by sulking. "I just want everything to be perfect," she'd say, pouting. "Don't you want me to feel like a princess on our wedding day?" But the real turning point came about 3 months after we got engaged, when she suddenly quit her job. "I'm just overwhelmed," she explained. "Between wedding planning and work, it's too much. And honestly, the startup isn't going anywhere. I'd rather focus on finding something better after the wedding." Just like that, the financial dynamic completely shifted. Now I was covering everything, her rent, her car payments, groceries, all of it. When I pointed out that this wasn't what we'd agreed on, she completely lost it. "I can't believe how selfish you're being," she snapped. "I'm handling the entire wedding while dealing with job stress, and you're worried about money?" Then she added something that stuck with me. "Once we're married, it won't even matter. Everything will be shared anyway." That's when she dropped the line that finally made things click. "Besides, once I have access to our joint accounts, I can manage our finances way better. I'm actually really good with money, I just haven't had enough to work with." Joint accounts, access, control. She had never once asked about my actual financial situation, but she was already making plans to take charge of it. That's when I started paying closer attention. I noticed how she'd casually sort through my mail when she came over, acting like it was nothing. The innocent questions about bonuses, savings, and investments became more frequent. Conversations kept circling back to money, long-term plans, and what we would do in the future. Then one day, I found something that made everything crystal clear. I was looking for a pen in her purse with her permission when I came across a small leather notebook. Curiosity got the better of me, so I opened it. What I saw made my stomach drop. She had been keeping notes, detailed ones. My salary, my house, rough estimates of how much I might have saved. She had even looked up property values in my neighborhood and written down what she believed my house was worth. But the worst part was a section labeled, "After Marriage Goals. Access all accounts within 6 months, refinance house to pull out equity for investments, upgrade engagement ring to minimum 2 carats, buy new car, BMW or Audi, $50,000, purchase vacation home for future family." She had mapped out my entire financial future, without me even knowing. And in her version of that future, I wasn't a partner. I was a resource. That night, I made a decision that would change everything. After seeing that notebook, I knew I had to protect myself. But I also needed clarity. I had to know exactly who I was dealing with. Was she just overstepping boundaries? Or had she been playing a long game from the beginning? So I decided to test her. I called my older brother Ryan, who works as a financial advisor, and explained the situation without using names. His reaction was immediate. "You need to protect your assets before you even think about marriage," he said. "But if you're unsure about her intentions, there's a way to find out." His idea was simple and honestly brilliant. Temporarily move all my assets into a family trust that he would manage. On paper, it would look like I owned almost nothing. The only thing left in my name would be the house, and even that would show a mortgage, one I'd technically be paying back to the trust. All my investments, savings, everything would still be safe, just hidden. If she genuinely loves you, Ryan said, finding out you're not as wealthy as she thought won't matter. But if she's after your money, she'll expose herself pretty quickly. Took about 2 weeks to set everything up legally. I transferred roughly $580,000 in investments into the trust, along with most of my savings. I left about $40,000 in my checking account and restructured things so my house appeared to have a $150,000 mortgage tied to it. On paper, I now looked like a regular guy with a decent job and a fair amount of debt. The plan was simple. I'd tell Madison that I hadn't been completely honest, that I'd been living beyond my means and was dealing with some financial pressure. Nothing extreme, just enough to shift the image she had of me. Because if her feelings were real, it wouldn't change anything. But if they weren't, I was about to find out the truth. But before I even got the chance to sit her down and have that conversation, Madison made the first move. She had moved into my place about a month earlier, rent-free of course, and had gotten a little too comfortable. Actually, more than a little. One evening, I walked in from work and found her sitting at my computer, trying to log into my bank accounts. "Oh, hey babe," she said casually when she noticed me. Not even slightly embarrassed. "I was just trying to understand our finances better, so I can help with budgeting." "Our finances?" I asked. "Well, yeah," she replied like it was obvious. "We're getting married in 6 months. I should know where we stand financially so I can help plan things properly." She had already cracked 2 of my security questions and was just 1 answer away from getting into my main account. That was the moment everything became crystal clear. Still, I stayed calm. "Honestly, I'm glad you brought this up," I said, pulling up a chair beside her. "We do need to talk about money." Her face lit up instantly, like she'd just won something. "I haven't been completely honest with you about my finances," I continued. "Things aren't as solid as they look." The excitement in her eyes faded a bit. "What do you mean?" she asked. "I've been stretching myself thin for a while," I said, sticking to the plan. "The house payments are tighter than they seem. I've got some credit card debt, and my savings aren't where they should be." I watched her closely as I went on. "I've probably got around $30,000 in savings and about $40,000 in credit card debt. I've been trying to get things under control, but it hasn't been easy." The shift in her expression was instant and brutal. Within seconds, confusion turned into disappointment, then straight into anger. "What the hell, Hudson?" she snapped. I'd never even heard her swear before. "How could you not tell me this? I've been planning our entire future thinking you were financially stable." "I am stable," I replied. "I make good money. I just need to clear some debt. It's not the end of the world." "Not a big deal," she shot back. "I quit my job. I've been planning a wedding we apparently can't even afford. I've been telling my friends we're financially secure." "Why are you telling your friends about our finances?" I asked. "Because they asked," she fired back. "When someone proposes with an $8,000 ring and owns a house, people assume you've got your life together." At this point, she was pacing around the room, clearly spiraling. "This changes everything," she muttered. "Everything. We need to postpone the wedding until you fix your debt. I need to get another job. We need to seriously rethink this entire relationship." I looked at her and said, "I thought you loved me for me, not for what's in my bank account." She didn't even hesitate. "This isn't about love, Hudson," she said coldly. "This is about partnership, about building a future. How are we supposed to build anything when you've been hiding something this important?" That night, she stormed out, and she stayed gone for 3 days. When she finally came back, she was different. Gone was the emotional outburst. In its place was something far more controlled, calculated, even. "We need to talk," she said, sitting down at the kitchen table and placing a folder in front of her. "I've thought a lot about our situation," she continued, opening it up, "and I've come up with a plan." She began laying out papers, printouts, notes, articles, like she'd been preparing a full financial strategy. "First, you need to be completely transparent with me," she said firmly. "I need access to everything, your statements, your accounts, all of it. If we're going to fix this, I need the full picture. Madison, I don't think... Second? She cut me off, ignoring what I was about to say. I've researched debt consolidation. We can take out a home equity loan against your house to pay off your credit cards. The interest rates are lower. She slid an article across the table as if presenting evidence. Third, we should postpone the wedding for now. Maybe do a small courthouse ceremony instead. Then have a proper celebration later when we're financially stable. I didn't say anything, but the translation was obvious. She wanted access to my home equity. She wanted a quick legal marriage to secure her position. And now that she thought I was broke, she suddenly had no problem scaling back the wedding. Then she pulled out another sheet. I've also found some side hustle ideas we can do together, she said. Real estate, crypto trading, maybe even launching a consulting business, she continued, flipping through her notes. We need multiple streams of income. I'll give her credit. She had clearly put in the effort. But at the same time, she'd made her intentions painfully obvious. Madison, I appreciate you trying to help, I said carefully. She cut me off immediately. This isn't optional, Hudson. Her tone had completely changed. Cold, sharp, almost threatening. If you want this relationship to survive, if you want a future with me, then this is what needs to happen. I'm not going to marry someone who's financially irresponsible and dishonest. Dishonest. That word hung in the air. You've been lying to me for 2 years about your finances, she continued. How am I supposed to trust anything else you say? Then she played what she clearly thought was her winning move. I spoke to my dad, she said, leaning forward. And he thinks you might actually be hiding money, like you've got assets somewhere, but you're pretending to struggle just to avoid responsibility. Or maybe even to test me. She locked eyes with me. So here's how this is going to work, she said firmly. You're going to prove you're being honest by giving me full access, joint accounts, passwords, everything. If you've got nothing to hide, it shouldn't be a problem. She paused for a second, then added, and if you refuse, then we're done. I'm not wasting my time on someone who won't be completely transparent with me. I acted like I needed to think about it. Then I slowly nodded. All right, I said. You're right. If we're getting married, we should share everything. Her smile came back. But it wasn't the same as before. This one felt predatory. Good, she said. Let's start by adding me to your bank accounts. Then we can move forward with the home equity loan. That night, I called Ryan. Time for phase 2, I told him. She wants access to everything. He didn't hesitate. Perfect, he said. Give her exactly what she asked for. Let her control the accounts with $40,000 in savings and $40,000 in debt. Let's see what she does. And the home equity loan? I asked. Delay it, he replied. Tell her the bank needs paperwork, approvals, whatever. Just stall. Then we sit back and watch. I didn't have to wait long. Giving Madison access to my accounts felt like watching a parasite latch onto a host in real time. Within a week, she had taken complete control of what she believed was our entire financial situation. She transferred the remaining $35,000 from my checking account into a high-yield savings account, one that only she had access to, claiming it was for security reasons. She opened a joint credit card in both our names with a $25,000 limit. She spent hours researching debt consolidation options and constantly pressured me about moving forward with the home equity loan. But the most revealing part wasn't what she did. It was how she acted. The thoughtful, independent woman I'd spent 2 years with disappeared completely. In her place was someone demanding, entitled, and honestly pretty reckless when it came to money. Babe, I found the perfect car, she said one morning, showing me a listing on her phone. A $45,000 BMW X5. Since we're consolidating debt anyway, we might as well roll a car loan into it, she explained. I need something reliable while I'm job hunting. Madison, I said, trying to stay calm. We're supposed to be getting out of debt, not adding more. She waved it off. This is an investment, Hudson. A better car helps me get a better job, which means more income for us. You have to spend money to make money. It didn't stop there. She signed us up for some overpriced wealth-building course, $500 upfront, that claimed it could teach us how to flip houses with zero money down. Then she pitched another idea. We should cash out your 401k, she said. Use it for crypto trading. This guy I follow says Bitcoin is going to hit $100,000 this year. If we invest $20,000 now, we could triple it. The lack of financial sense was bad enough. But the entitlement? That was worse. She had started referring to my house as our house and was already making renovation plans, knocking down walls, remodeling the kitchen, adding a master suite, all while believing we were sitting on $40,000 of debt. Whenever I pointed out we couldn't afford any of it, she had the same answer every time. We'll just use the home equity loan, she said confidently. Real estate is an investment. Whatever we put into the house, we'll get back later. Anything we spend on it, we'll recover when we eventually sell, she insisted. But everything finally came to a head the night she invited her parents over, without even mentioning it to me. I walked in after work and found Madison sitting in my living room with her mom, Carol, and her dad, Dave. There were takeout bags spread across the table from a high-end steakhouse. Surprise, Madison said brightly. I thought it'd be nice if we all had dinner together. That nice dinner cost $180. And of course, it came straight out of the joint account she now controlled. Madison mentioned you two are dealing with some financial difficulties, Carol said, her tone dripping with fake concern. Dave and I went through something similar when we were younger. It's manageable, I replied carefully. Nothing we can't handle. We'd like to help, Dave said, pulling out a folded document. I've put together a small agreement. He slid it across the table toward me. Your mother and I are willing to lend you $50,000. Interest-free, he continued. Just family supporting family. I picked up the paper. It wasn't just a simple loan agreement. It was a contract that would place a lien on my house as collateral. This way, you can clear your debts and get some breathing room, Carol added. And if anything ever happens, we'll know Madison is protected. Madison sat there smiling, like this was some incredible act of generosity. It was obvious. She had planned all of this. We'll just need some documentation, Dave went on. Bank statements, debt summaries, property valuation, standard requirements for a loan of this size. I truly appreciate the offer, I said, keeping my voice steady. But I'm not comfortable borrowing money from family. Madison's smile immediately faltered. Hudson, this isn't just a loan. It's help, she said. They're trying to support us. I understand that, I replied. But I'd rather handle this on my own. He's just being proud, Carol cut in. Then she turned to Madison. Sweetheart, maybe you can explain things more clearly for us. We just want to make sure we're offering the right kind of help. That was all the invitation Madison needed. She started explaining what she thought my financial situation looked like. But then she went further, way further. He's dealing with nearly $60,000 in credit card debt across multiple accounts, she said confidently. The mortgage is putting a lot of pressure on us. And honestly, it's been affecting his performance at work because of the stress. None of that was true, not even close. But she delivered it like she was presenting facts to a loan officer. And I'm pretty sure there are other debts he hasn't told me about yet, she added. Men don't usually like admitting when they're struggling financially. That's when it clicked. This wasn't about helping me. This was about pulling her parents into my finances so they could apply pressure and gain leverage over my assets. Once her parents left, Madison could barely contain her excitement. Isn't this perfect? She said. We can clear everything and start fresh. My parents are being so generous. Madison, I said firmly, I'm not signing anything that puts my house at risk. Her expression snapped instantly. Are you serious? She shot back. They're offering $50,000 with zero interest. Do you have any idea how much that would help us? No, I said simply. The shift in her face was immediate, cold, sharp, calculating. You know what, Hudson? She said slowly. I think my dad might be right. I think you are hiding money. I frowned. What are you talking about? No one turns down a deal like this unless they've got something to hide. She continued. What are you planning? Planning what? I don't know, she snapped. Maybe you're hiding assets before we get married. Maybe you're setting things up so you can divorce me later and keep everything. Maybe you never really loved me at all. She was spiraling now, throwing out accusations that barely made sense. But underneath it, there was something else. Desperation. I think we need to postpone the wedding, she said finally. At least until you prove that you're being completely honest with me. Fine, I replied. That wasn't the reaction she expected. Her eyes widened slightly. Fine? That's it? You're just okay with postponing our wedding? Madison, I said calmly. If you need a full financial investigation with your parents involved, just to trust me, then maybe we shouldn't be getting married at all. She stared at me for a long moment. I could practically see the gears turning in her head as she recalculated her next move. Maybe you're right, she said quietly. Maybe we should take a break. Give each other some space to figure things out. She moved out the very next day, took everything she had brought into the house, and a few things that actually belonged to me, but she left something behind. Access to the joint account, and the credit cards. I had a strong feeling this wasn't the end. Madison moving out should have closed the chapter. But she wasn't the type to walk away empty-handed, especially after getting a glimpse of what she believed was at stake. What followed was 2 months of increasingly desperate attempts, either to pull me back into the relationship or to get access to what she was convinced was my real money. At first, she stuck to the classic breakup script. Sad messages about how much she missed me, drunk calls in the middle of the night, apologizing and saying she'd made a mistake, random appearances at my workplace with coffee in hand and a bright smile, pretending everything was normal again. I've been doing a lot of thinking, she told me during one of those surprise visits, and I realized I was being unreasonable. You were right about the loan. I shouldn't have pushed that. We can handle everything ourselves. It sounded sincere, but she hadn't abandoned her real objective. She just adjusted her approach. Acutely, she added casually, I've been researching some options. There are tax credits and government programs that might help with debt relief. I could look into them for you if you want. She was fishing, trying to get me to hand over personal details, my social security number, financial data, under the excuse of helping. When the soft approach failed, she shifted gears. My friend Jessica thinks you might be seeing someone else, she said one day, her tone carefully neutral. Is that why you've been so distant? Another time, she added, Sarah told me you've been going out downtown a lot. Are you already dating again? It was obvious what she was doing, trying to provoke jealousy, make me defensive, push me into proving my loyalty, and, ultimately, give her what she wanted. But the moment that revealed everything came one evening when I got home and saw her car parked in my driveway. She still had a key, and she had let herself in. I found her in my home office, crouched by my filing cabinet, flipping through documents. Madison, what the hell are you doing? I demanded. I left some paperwork here, she replied casually, without even a hint of embarrassment. Financial documents from when we were planning the wedding. In my filing cabinet? I must have put them there by accident. She was digging for something. Bank statements, investment records, anything that would prove I had more money than I'd let on. When she came up empty, her frustration started to show. Hudson, I know you're hiding something, she said, standing up. Based on what? No one lives like this on an engineer's salary, especially not with the kind of debt you claim to have. Lives like what? I asked. You never stress about money, she snapped. You don't even look at prices when we go out. You dropped $8,000 on a ring like it was nothing. Your house is too nice. Your furniture too expensive. It doesn't make sense. She wasn't wrong, just completely off about the reason. And another thing, she continued. I've been watching the joint account. You're not acting like someone drowning in debt. You're still eating out, still spending like nothing's wrong. If you were actually struggling, you'd be cutting back. She had been tracking everything, analyzing my behavior, looking for cracks in the story. "I think you've got another account somewhere," she said. "Or maybe your family has money and you're just not telling me." For a second, I almost felt sorry for her. She was circling the truth, but missing it entirely. And then she made her biggest mistake. "Look," she said, softening her voice. "I know we're on a break, but I still love you. And if this whole thing was some kind of test, pretending to be broke, you've made your point." She stepped closer. "I passed, didn't I? I stayed with you even when I thought you had nothing. So can we just be honest now and start planning our real future?" She genuinely believed this had all been a test, and that she had succeeded. "I'm not testing you, Madison," I said. "Then prove it," she shot back. "Show me your real financial situation. If you're actually broke, like you say, then show me everything and let me help fix it." She paused, then added, "And if you're not, then stop lying and let's move forward together." An ultimatum, but based on a completely wrong assumption. "I already showed you everything," I said calmly. "What you see is exactly what there is." The look on her face shifted instantly. Pure anger. "You're such a liar, Hudson," she snapped. "I don't know what game you're playing, but I'm done with it." She stormed toward the door, then stopped and turned back. "And I'm keeping access to the joint account," she added coldly, "until you prove you're not hiding anything. Consider it insurance." Then she left. The second the door closed, I picked up my phone and called Ryan. "She thinks I've been testing her," I told him. "She thinks this whole thing was some kind of setup," I told Ryan. "Like I was testing whether she's a gold digger." He let out a short laugh. "Well, she's not exactly wrong," he said. "So what's your move?" I didn't hesitate. "It's time to end this. Final phase." There was a brief pause on the line. "You sure you want to go all the way with this?" he asked. "Oh, I'm sure," I replied. "She's about to learn exactly what kind of game she's been playing." "All right then," Ryan said. "Let's show her what real money actually looks like." 2 weeks after her little break-in and that ultimatum, I decided I was done dragging this out. But I wasn't just going to tell her the truth. I wanted her to feel it, fully understand what she'd been chasing and what she'd just lost. First, I opened a brand new account at a different bank and transferred $200,000 into it from the family trust. Then I called her. "Hey," I said, "can you come by tonight? We need to talk." She showed up in less than an hour. No hesitation. She walked in like she was expecting me to fold. "I've been thinking about what you said," I told her once she sat down in the living room. "About honesty." Her eyes lit up instantly. "Really?" "Yeah," I nodded. "You were right. I haven't been completely truthful about my financial situation." "I knew it," she said, leaning forward, practically glowing with anticipation. "So what's the truth?" I looked her straight in the eye. "The truth is, I'm not in debt. I never was." Her expression froze, excitement collapsing into confusion. "What are you talking about?" I reached over, grabbed a printed bank statement from the table, and handed it to her. "What I mean is," I said calmly, "I have around $600,000 in investments. I own this house outright, and I make a lot more than I ever told you." She stared down at the paper. Her mouth literally dropped open. "What the hell, Hudson? I moved most of my assets into a family trust," I continued. "Right around the time I started suspecting your intentions. After that, I created the whole debt situation, just to see how you'd react." The color drained from her face as realization hit. You've been testing me this entire time?" I didn't blink. "Yeah," I said, "and you failed. Badly." I opened my laptop and turned it toward her. A folder full of screenshots. "Want to see how bad?" I asked. I started scrolling. "This is you trying to break into my bank accounts without permission." Next file. "This is you researching loans against my house." Another one. "This is you going through my personal documents." Then another. "And this is you bringing your parents over to pressure me into signing away leverage on my own property." Her hands started trembling as she looked through it all. But I stayed with you when I thought you were broke, she said weakly. I shook my head. No, you didn't. Her eyes snapped back to me. The moment you believed I had financial problems, I said. You tried to take control of everything. You pushed to delay the wedding. You brought your parents in to back you financially. You didn't stay, you tried to take over. That's not true, she protested. I was trying to help. No, I cut in. You were helping yourself. I didn't stop. You quit your job the second we got engaged because you thought you had security. You started making plans for money that wasn't yours. You pushed for access to everything the moment you thought there was something to gain. I clicked open more files. This is your notebook, where you estimated my net worth. Another. This is where you researched how to tap into home equity. And another. This is where you planned to upgrade your engagement ring once you had access to our money. Now she was crying. But it wasn't sadness. It was anger, frustration. This isn't fair, she said through clenched teeth. You lied to me. I protected myself from you, I replied. And honestly, good thing I did because you showed me exactly who you are. Then I hit her with the final piece. Oh, and Madison, I said, almost casually. Remember that $35,000 you moved into that high-yield savings account? Her face went completely pale. The one only you have access to? She didn't say a word. You're probably wondering why I let that slide for 2 months, I continued. Why I didn't say anything. I leaned back slightly. It's because I wanted to see how far you'd go. A pause. And because I wanted you to cross a line. I reached over and placed another document in front of her. This, I said, is a police report I filed this morning. She stared at it, frozen. Turns out, I added calmly, when you transfer someone else's money into an account they can't access, it's called embezzlement. You can't do that, she stammered. I didn't steal anything, we were engaged. Were we? I replied calmly. Because from where I'm standing, you postponed the wedding indefinitely and moved out. I let that sink in. Legally, I continued, you're not my fiancée anymore. You're my ex-girlfriend who transferred $35,000 out of my account without permission. Her breathing became erratic. Hudson, please, she said, panic rising. I can explain. I'll give the money back. I was just trying to help us. Help us, I repeated. I reached for another document and placed it in front of her. Let me show you what helping us actually would have looked like. She stared down at it. This is the prenup my lawyer prepared before I realized who you really were, I said. If you had signed it and married me honestly, you would have been entitled to half of everything I earned during the marriage. I paused, watching her process it. With my current income and investments, that would have meant around $100,000 a year for the rest of your life. Her expression shifted rapidly. Shock, regret, disbelief, all hitting at once. Instead, I went on. You chose manipulation. You chose to try and take what wasn't yours. I leaned back slightly. And now you walk away with nothing. A brief pause. Actually, less than nothing. Her voice dropped to almost nothing. What do you mean? You're going to prison, I said flatly. Prison? She whispered. Embezzlement involving $35,000 is a felony, I explained. You're looking at a minimum of 2 to 5 years. That's when everything broke. Hudson, please, she cried. I'm sorry, I made mistakes. Okay? But I love you. I was just scared about the future. Panicked. Please don't press charges. I'll return every dollar. I'll sign anything you want. Just don't destroy my life. Destroy your life? I said coldly. Madison, you did that yourself. I just kept the records. She dropped to her knees. Actually dropped. I'll do anything, she begged. I'll confess. I'll pay you back double. I'll tell everyone what I did. Just give me another chance. I shook my head. The only chance you ever had, I said, was to care about me for who I am, not what you thought I could provide. I stepped back. You lost that the moment you started planning how to spend money that wasn't yours. I walked to the door and opened it. The police will likely contact you tomorrow, I added. You should get a lawyer. I glanced back at her. A real one this time. As I stepped aside, she grabbed my arm. Wait, what about your parents? She said desperately. They said they'd help us. They can loan me the money. I can fix this, Hudson. Please, there has to be a way. I looked down at her, pathetic, desperate, and I felt absolutely nothing. My parents, I said. They're retired teachers living on a pension. They never offered anything. I paused just long enough. That was your parents trying to secure leverage over my assets. The realization hit her like a brick. The look on her face, shock turning into horror, was almost surreal. As she stumbled toward the door, I added one last thing. Oh, and Madison? She turned, barely holding herself together. That BMW you wanted so badly? I gave a slight shrug. I bought two, paid cash. 3 months later, she pleaded guilty to embezzlement. 18 months in county jail. Full restitution. Her parents even tried to sue me for entrapment, but my lawyer shut that down immediately. I kept the engagement ring. Last week, I got a letter from her, for pages long. Apologies, promises, begging me to help with her legal fees. I used it to light a cigar. On my new boat, lesson learned: never give someone access to your resources until they've proven they value you without them. And if they fail that test, make sure they fully understand what they lost. Trust me, sometimes the ending is worth it.